It says, we're live. Hello. Welcome
It says we're live.
to the Review of Death, Series 12 review. I am Gizmo, and today I will be conducting this video with my good friend Billy Garrett John. How are you, Billy?
I'm great, mate. I'm doing really, really well. Thank you, Gizmo.
Good.
You're a good-looking lad today. You're looking fabulous.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. A bit sleepy. You know, I've been chewing up toys and stuff, but yeah. I'm actually gonna have to move the dog out of the way now because it's hurting my arms. So, hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Sorry that we're having to do this in this format. Someone has just said my dog is foul. You can go shoot yourself.
You can
yes.
self-isolate yourself.
Yeah. So, sorry that we're doing it like this. Obviously, the situation as it is with COVID-19 and all that business means that we cannot be in the same room together. I mean, I'm sure some people would prefer that we weren't in the same room together ever anyway. But
yeah. Or if we were in the same room together, we didn't have as many clothes on as we do now.
Yes.
So that's just something we're going to have to work through for the time being. But there we are.
This bloody dog just wants to be on camera. Sorry, he's just going to have to stay here. Is that a season 18 Lavazzi scarf in the back, Matt? Yes, it is. Can you hear us all okay?
I think so. I think they're all. Let me have a look at the. I'm in a weird. Instantly, the connection is better than your previous live streams. That's down to Matt's computer because yes. Matt's one of his super duper mega fast. It runs on nuclear power.
Yeah.
His computers he's got at the moment.
I'm on a Yogscast computer. We're connected via Ethernet cable, so no Wi-Fi for us. We should be solid with our internet connection.
We should.
Anyway.
Oh, you're a little bit quieter compared to me, apparently, Matt.
Oh, am I?
Audio wise.
Let me. How's that? Is that better? I've bent my microphone round. Is that any better?
Well, I think. Well, in about 6 months, we'll find out when the chat actually ends up refreshing itself.
Yeah. Billy is a bit loud. Matt plugging that job again. I see. Someone said I'm not plugging it. It's just the way it is. I'm working from home, and I needed a computer.
Yeah. So we might as well start by having a quick chat about everything that's going on. How's sort of work been affected by everything so far, Matt?
Not really. We're still going. We can still stream and stuff and record. So, yeah, we're good.
Excellent. I've lost my job.
Oh.
Anyway, thanks to Series 12. Because there's nothing that will pick our hearts and minds up better and our souls than Series 12.
Yes.
So we did our preview video of the series. I just realised I don't have any tissues with me, and I do have a runny nose, so I might have to run away.
He's got the coronavirus. I knew there was a reason why we didn't have you around today.
I definitely do. Yeah. So So Series 12, we did our Series 12 preview, and it was funny kind of going into it because we had a slight suspicion of the sort of things we'd be seeing when we were going into Series 11. You know, it would be a completely new format. And did you want to know more or less comparatively to Series 12 compared to Series 11?
What you mean in terms of spoilers and things?
Yeah, or any kind of storylines or anything like that.
Yeah, I did. I didn't really go looking this time round. I mean, obviously, occasionally things just popped up on Twitter and stuff, and that's inevitable. But I didn't really go hunting, even when it was gearing up to the finale and all that stuff happens in Fugitive of the Jadoon. I didn't really go looking. I just sort of thought, well, I'm enjoying not knowing. Yeah, so no, I didn't. Did you go spoiler hunting?
Do you know what? I did more spoiler hunting for Series 12 than I have probably since Series 5.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't do anything for Series 11 because I thought it would really, really spoil the kind of the fun of the new Doctor.
Yeah.
But it was sort of impossible when you started seeing spoilers come out that were undeniably ridiculous. Stuff like we're going to find out that there's a whole other slew of regenerations before William Hartnell, and they're all women.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that became so publicized.
It was only a half truth.
Well, exactly. But that's the thing. It's like, it's so publicized. Is that not the craziest? It's almost like we haven't really considered how insane that leak is.
Yeah.
That people knew that was going to happen so early on.
Yeah. And the Cyberman in the Mary Shelley story, that got leaked.
Exactly. And, you know, besides obviously the first sequence on the train being leaked with Jodie, that got leaked, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
Like, that's really sad. I felt really bad for them. But you just got to think now, like they have been in a very serious, leaky situation with the stuff that was coming about Series 12 was insanely, like, sensitive.
It's funny, isn't it, really? Because they've done such a big job of, like, keeping everything under wraps. Like, we don't see pretty much anything these days compared to other years. But yet so many of the big things ended up leaking anyway. It's like, oh, bless them. It's like, is it really worth going to all that extra effort?
I know. Like the you know, back in the day we would have found a lot of spoilers from Russell's Doctor Who just because people would have been on location and they weren't as secretive with stuff on location as they are now. But you know, now they have to prioritize announcing a villain that's returning because they know people are going to spot them on the streets.
Yeah.
Like the Jadoon and like the Mondasian Cybermen before them, except the Daleks. They just went, no one's going to be around Clifton Suspension Bridge that time of night to take photos of a brand new Dalek model. Yeah. Let's just film it up there and not tell Matt and Billy. So we'll live with it. We'll get there together. So what were your hopes and dreams heading into Series 12, Matt? Was it literally just that you hoped it would be better than Series 11?
Basically. I know that I didn't go in with high expectations because I mean I enjoyed parts of Series 11. Don't get me wrong, but I thought on the whole it was one of the weaker series since it came back, and you know, probably in general. So I was just hoping, let's have some monsters, let the Doctor be more proactive in the stories, let's see more facets of a Doctor that isn't just, oh hello, I'm the Doctor and I'm really happy, you know, just anything, I just thought anything really. And I gotta say, on the whole, it bloody well delivered, and it delivered from the first episode. And even my brother thought the same thing. He was in the same boat as me. I mean, he disliked Series 11 more than I did. And after, like, Spyfall, the first part aired, he was like, my God, this has had such a kick up the arse since last series. What about you?
I was really, really looking forward to it because I really enjoyed Series 11, and I was looking forward to more of the same. But I was also looking forward to seeing how any kind of criticisms or any kind of constructive criticism that was given to the production team, how that would be taken on board.
Yeah.
And I think generally, do you think that they took some of the advice forward and kind of they were a bit more?
Totally.
You know,
totally. Yeah. I mean, every episode generally had some sort of a monster or a villain for the Doctor to face off. And that worked so well for her, you know. The Master was such a good foil for Jodie because she really came out of her shell, I thought. When she had an actual villain to talk across to and act against, it was just a whole other side of her character came out. You could see that there was the anger and the rage was there under the surface. And that wasn't really something we'd seen in Series 11. You know, characters like Tim Shaw, you know, he wasn't the best baddie in the world. Whereas when you bring back a character like the Master and they've got all this history, watching it, I thought their dynamic was excellent because I really felt like, yes, this is totally John Pertwee and Roger Delgado, you know, 40 years on, you know, that same dynamic is there. So it was just so much better. And she was just, she was able to get involved more, and she was snappy with people. You know, that Cyberman story, she turns around to that woman and is like, oh, I don't want your life story. You couldn't imagine her saying that in Series 11.
But do you think that character progression was earned? Because I kind of felt like sometimes the way that she would flip and the way that she would snap at people was more just right, she needs to snap here. Yeah. So there's been no, I mean, obviously seeing Gallifrey destroyed in Spyfall obviously was some kind of trigger for her to start taking the universe a bit more seriously.
Yeah, totally.
And then we have this is my biggest issue with Series 12. We have these massive character revelations through the story.
Yep.
Or through individual stories in the series, and then they're instantly dropped to make way for an episode that has zero relation to what's happened last week.
Yes.
And you just kind of wish, like with the reveal of Ruth, the Doctor stood there in the TARDIS and just like, she was me. And, you know, then the fam do their whole, well, we're family, you know, we'll go for this together. That whole thing.
Yeah.
And then Jodie's just like, right, yank the dematerialization lever. And yank the Autons knob, and then away we go. And she literally says, I think somebody asks her, do you want to, like, follow up on this? Or do you want to wait and just, like, chill out for a bit? And she's like, yeah, let's just wait and chill out a bit. And then off they go. And it's like, what a shame.
Yeah.
Like, the most interesting revelation. And, you know, I think we should probably at some point talk about viewing figures, but I think that sort of like bandying around of really core character revelations, then just ignoring them and moving on to the next thing and not mentioning them at all in that next story, I think was a really big problem, personally.
Yes, totally. It really kicks the momentum. You know, you're building, and then all of a sudden you drop for two, you know, I don't want to say fluff stories, but you know, in the wider scheme of things. And there's such a big thing about, you know, we want to make Doctor Who more modern and more like current television. It needs to compete with all these Netflix shows. Where you look at stuff like Stranger Things and any sort of program like that that's on a streaming service, the narrative arc is there throughout every episode, and it builds and it builds and it builds. All right, some episodes are a bit slower than others, but for the most part, every time you step into the next episode, you get a little bit more, and then it ends, and you're like, Christ, I've got to keep watching it. I've got to watch the next episode. That's why we binge watch all this stuff. And I think had they have taken that approach with this series, I'm not saying do it every series, but with something that had such a strong arc and was such an interesting story and got so many people talking, I think this was the series where they could have gone, let's really just, from this point onwards, have the second half of the series be more interlinked and really develop that thread. Because, you know, I think you could have done a lot more with the Cyberman stuff, and obviously a lot more with Ruth. There was a lot of areas they could have gone. And it felt like after Fugitive, you go to Praxeus, and it's just like, oh, okay. And then, obviously, I know you liked Can You Hear Me, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, started.
Yeah, I just think there was a better way of doing it. And that's not to say that it necessarily would have brought everyone watching it, you know, that's not necessarily the solution, but I think if they wanted to compete with that, this was such a good opportunity to do it, because it was such a strong arc. Obviously, this Series 11 didn't have an arc, you know, it was just, here are some random stories, which is fine, but I think if you were going to do the arc thing this time, that was the place to do it.
But I think that was the issue. I think you've hit it there, that, you know, they wanted to sort of do the Monster of the Week, there's no through line Series 11 sort of thing, but then they also wanted to retain the audience by weaving a mystery.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of clashed. And I think that, you know, we were going back and forth in messages after every episode and, you know, every day of the week that Doctor Who was on, as we tend to anyway. But every single day that the overnights were announced, it was just like, what a shame. Like last night's was really good.
Yes.
And we said that about basically every single story this year.
Yeah. Even my brother was doing the same thing. He was like, gosh, it was such a good story last night. Why is no one watching it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's sad.
It's such a shame that one of the stronger seasons of the last, you know, like 5-10 years possibly. Oh man, that's, you know, maybe not 10 years. Last 5 years certainly. But like, it's such a shame.
And one of those, it wasn't on.
Exactly. It's such a shame that it's just, it's complete. And I'm not going to be one of those idiot conspiracy theorist nuts who call people SJWs and cucks and talk about, you know, how, you know, I'm not going to be a Bowles Trek and talk about Muslim people replacing white people in the West. But what I will say, is, I think it is a great shame that we can see the general audience have completely abandoned the program at this point.
Yeah, they're not. They're just. I just don't think people are interested. I think that's the problem. I just don't think people are interested. I think people are interested when Series 11 came on because it was a new Doctor and it was the first female Doctor. But then once that had happened, it started to gradually drop, and it's just continued to do so. I just think people tune in for the big events and then go, oh yeah, that same program that I watched when I was, however young or whatever, which is a shame. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is to that.
And it's just it's a shame that you look. I mean, somebody's just commented, why do you think the general audience has abandoned it? I think the general audience have abandoned it because I see. It's really difficult because I don't want to lambast and take the mick out of anyone or be negative about the program unjustifiably.
No.
But I don't think Chris Chibnall is a deft enough writer to write with the same natural pace as a Russell T Davies.
Yeah.
Where he is pacing and running these continuing storylines like to perfection, right? Like a Bad Wolf or like a Torchwood.
Yeah.
And he is not cat-handed enough to just throw everything at it in an explosive movie blockbuster type of way like Stephen Moffat.
Yeah.
He is the most fan writer we've had.
Yes.
Which the detriment of the program means that the casual audience have tuned out because we are now going back and talking about plot points from stories that were made almost 50 years ago now.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that is why the general audience have stopped watching, because they have no interest in, and I'll defend Gallifrey on the show because I love seeing Gallifrey on the program. Yeah. I love seeing the Time Lords. I think that they are underutilized. But I think if you build an entire story arc around something that we have no knowledge of as fans, and you bury it in technobabble and you bury it in lore of the Gallifreyan society that we haven't seen on television for, almost to that level for like 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
I think people are just going to put their hands up and go, I don't know what's going on here. It's the same Stephen Moffat thing as people going, I tuned out because it became too confusing.
Yeah.
And I think that is the main issue, I think.
Totally agree with you. And that's exactly the reason, well, partly the reason why I didn't put any of my opinions in the Timeless Child video that I did. I know a lot of people thought that video was me supporting the story arc. It wasn't. It was just me saying maybe we're criticizing it for the wrong issues here. But totally that. I said it to my brother the night before Timeless Children aired. I said, I can't see any person on the street, Joe Bloggs, is going to want to watch this. They're just not going to have a clue about what any of this means. And the whole finale was such an info dump anyway. It was just, let's sit the Doctor down for the next 45 minutes and explain to her her new Wikipedia page. That I just don't think that's not engaging for the audience. It works for us as fans because we lap that crap up. But the thing is,
it felt like a fan film storyline.
Yeah.
And like I've often said before to people, I might have even said it in videos before talking about Series 11. I feel like Chris Chibnall's dialogue also comes across like a fan film script.
Right, yeah.
And like that whole sequence at the end where she's like, right, Matrix, get a blast of this.
Yeah.
I wrote that exact scene in one of my fan films with Max, my cousin Max, where he has the flashback and he sees all of his past incarnations. I wrote that exact scene. And I just feel like he's not, this sounds really, really bad, and I don't mean it as an insult, but I just don't think he's intelligent enough as a writer to handle stuff like that without it feeling cat-handed, without it feeling like fan wank.
Yeah.
And without it feeling like we're just watching somebody pour their entire childhood into a season and go, right, I really wanted to do this when I was a kid, so I'm going to do it.
That's it.
They've now had to connect all the dots up And when they connect all the dots up, it's like, mate, that is only interesting to you, that story.
Yeah.
That story has only ever been interesting to you.
Yeah.
And while, I have absolutely no problem with the concept of there being other regenerations before Hartnell, and the way that they handled it, I think, was a bit iffy.
Yeah.
But I don't mind it, but I didn't need that story.
No.
I don't think anybody needed that story. Doctor Who didn't need that story. The fact that it has it is fine. That's cool. But I just don't think that. I have reservations with the way that he's handled the lore of the program by just trying to do whatever he fancies, from like a fan perspective. And it's
A fanny perspective.
A fanny perspective. I didn't even notice that.
No, I completely agree. I think is mad because when I was watching that story, I was obviously I'm not keen on the whole pre-Hartnell Doctors really. And when it was happening, I was like, oh god, here we go. And then we saw the Morbius Doctors, and I was like, oh wait, yeah, that makes sense. And then I had this sudden moment where I was like, why are we seeing something from a 40-year-old episode of Doctor Who in the modern program now as like the major linchpin for this story arc? Fans watching aren't going to know what that's all about, let alone the general public.
Yeah.
And I just think that the whole Gallifrey thing, the BBC should have said, okay, Chris, that's a lovely idea. Why don't you take that to BBC Books and they can do some nice, lavish hardback book with lovely illustrations about the history
a really, really good point. I like that idea.
The history of Gallifrey and all this stuff. But for the love of God, don't just sit down and be like, right, let's have a whole episode dedicated to, right, this is the origins of the Time Lords. And I know some people have complained like, oh well, it completely breaks the canon because they don't talk about Rassilon and Omega. It's like, well, they don't talk about it because it's so much information already. Don't go bloody off on that about, right, so then we've got this other guy and he did this and he did that and then he was in a black hole. My god, it is just Wikipedia Doctor Who.
I know.
Yes, it's crazy. It's really crazy. And I think the thing is, they make such a big point of it being, oh, this will change the series forever. And this is the issue that I have with it, is when it happened, I was like, oh, okay, they've done this thing. I just didn't really care. And I didn't really care.
That was why I had such a negative reaction to that story.
Yeah, it was because I didn't care, because I thought to myself, well, at the end of the day, some other writer is probably going to come along and either retcon it or change it or tweak it. It's not like it's going to be something that's going to be in every story. Every story is still just going to be, Doctor goes off somewhere, there's a problem, she solves it with her mates.
Yeah.
The fundamentals of the program aren't being changed here. All right, so there's a little bit of extra history. Well, so what? It's not doing anything. It's not really giving us anything.
Also, the mystery that they've added to it. Who was the timeless child? Who was the Doctor before she got abandoned?
Yeah.
And picked up by Tecteun and experimented on, and so on and so forth. I have zero interest in that, because as far as I'm aware, even though that is the character that would eventually call themselves the Doctor, that is not the Doctor.
Exactly.
As far as we're aware, the timeless child is just a child, and doesn't have any previous regenerations necessarily.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have zero interest in any of the stuff that has been set up for this arc to continue with.
Yeah.
And I would much rather just go, okay, cool, we had this crazy series where loads of stuff happened, and loads of stuff got unveiled to the fans, and they were kind of like, not really sure about this. They were like, okay, cool, well, you weren't that keen on that, that's fine, we're just going to go back to having nice adventures, and we might bring it up every so often, but that's just to make sure you guys, almost as like lip service to go, we haven't forgotten about it because we thought it was a failure. We're just not going to talk about it that often because it wasn't that popular. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. And it makes me think of the Cartmore Master Plan. I know there are some people out there who absolutely love the Cartmore Master Plan. Personally, I've never been fond of it because, again, it just goes, we're learning too much about the Doctor. And I know that in the TV series they always said we would never have actually explained all that stuff that you then get in Lung Barrow. You know, we wouldn't have talked about the other and all this business. We wouldn't have gone into it and revealed the Doctor's origins.
Because casual audience members don't care.
Casual audiences don't care, and at the end of the day, then it ruins the mystery. You know, you're creating a mystery, which is fine, but then if you go too far with it, because writers, you know, they come up with these good ideas, and then they're like, oh wow, this is a great idea, I want to explore it more, and then they explore it more, and they go, oh shit, I've like balls myself up, I've created the mystery, but now I've explained the mystery, and we have no mystery. And that is exactly what's happening here. You know, it's like, oh, the mystery of the timeless child, all right, is the Doctor. Okay. If they then go on in future series and really delve into that, well, we're in that same predicament again. The mystery's gone. So that's why, because I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's brought the mystery back to Doctor Who," and it's like, but has it though? You know, if they're gonna go into it, we're gonna lose that mystery again.
I am far more interested about the really, really plain and simple idea of the Doctor getting bored of being on Gallifrey, and I want to know what the Doctor was doing prior to leaving Gallifrey. If that's the only mystery that we have left to solve, I want to know what the Doctor's role was in Time Lord Society.
Yeah.
I am not interested in what the Doctor was doing 7 lifetimes before that.
No.
Now that we've just discovered them.
Yeah.
The scope of stories within that seems to be quite interesting, but as far as I can tell, the Doctor never left Gallifrey during that period.
Yeah.
The Doctor stayed and basically created Time Lord Society. Right? Or was at least like the figurehead for that society. Oh no, of course Tecteun did it, but you know, the Doctor never left Gallifrey because they were either being experimented on or they had become a member of the Time Lord High Elite.
Yeah.
And that's that. And then they leave Gallifrey and they go off into the universe. That is the interesting bit. It's not that Gallifrey is uninteresting. It's that I have not been made to feel with the info dump that we were given in that final story that there is anything interesting worth dragging out of people being stuck on Gallifrey, not doing an awful lot and looking up at the stars going, I wish I was out there instead of down here. Anyway, back off to do work for the division, which from your video we're suggesting happens after the Doctor leaves Gallifrey. And
I don't know.
that to me sounds like a great idea, and I am far more interested in Ruth. Ruth was the revelation of this series for me. If they had ever done anything involving past Doctors on Gallifrey in the finale, then I would have been happy with the fact that we have a brand new awesome Doctor in the shape of Ruth. And what was your initial reaction to the Ruth thing? Because compared to what we got later on, it was quite a minor thing, really, wasn't it?
I mean, I was totally shocked, obviously, but it was the one episode that I got to watch with my brother, and we were both like, "Oh my god! Like, what does it all mean? Is it incredible?" But we weren't like, "Oh bugger, they've balls the program up. What are they doing?" Nothing like that. We were just really interested to see where is this going to go, and whether it was like a bit of a war Doctor, and it was, you know, this missing incarnation. Fine, you know, I guess it's been done, but yeah, it was super exciting, and she was excellent. You know, in those few minutes that we saw of her on screen, she was just fantastic. I was just like, wow, I have really connected to your Doctor in a way that I didn't really feel that I had done with Jodie's, which is pretty bad, because she had that edge to her. And I think Jodie didn't have the edge in that first series. She's got it more now, but in that first series, I don't feel like she had it. But
I think she's just a different Doctor, isn't she? She's more like the kind of Doctors that you and I like.
Yes.
Because I would say that, you know, Jodie, even though I really like her portrayal because I think it suits her really, really well.
Yeah.
She is sort of similar to a kind of an early McGann sort of like kind of eyes wide open, sort of, you know, romantic of the universe, and similar to kind of the 10th Doctor and Davison.
Yeah.
And it's like those are just different portrayals of the Doctor, but we like the Pertwees, we like the Hartnells, we like the Bakers, you know, both of them.
Yeah.
And I think that she gives off more of that vibe, almost in a kind of way of like a new series writer kind of going, right, that's your Doctor. You can have your Doctor, classic series fans.
Yeah.
And just to annoy some of you who are awful people, I'm going to make her black and I'm going to make her a woman.
Yeah.
There you are. Like, now that's your Doctor. She's acting just like the Doctor that you have always wanted.
Yeah.
But what's that? You still don't like her? I think you might have some more deep-seated problems than just my writing.
Yeah.
If you still don't like this Doctor.
And she's got. I love her costume. I think her costume
awesome.
is so
and
good.
her TARDIS, her interior and
TARDIS
extra.
is beautiful.
Oh my god!
It's like, why don't they just use that all the time? It's just
She
so
is
much nicer.
almost like the perfect modern Doctor from a classic series fan's perspective, isn't she?
Totally, absolutely. Yeah. It's very exciting, and I think that's why I was disappointed with the finale, because I was like, oh, she's bound to come into this story, and I thought she was going to turn up and help the other guys with the Cybermen while all this other stuff was going on.
We said that in the chat, that we expected there to be a scene where, what was it? They're pinned in that room. The Cybermen are breaking through, and just as they burst through, a big ventilation shaft is like kicked through, and she's on the other side, and she grabs them and pulls them in. And then that could have even just been an opportunity to have the situation explained to them properly. If the Doctor still kept stuff secret from the companions, that would have been something else you could feed to, with their insecurities about her. And then they finally have something explained to them by the Ruth Doctor. And they're like, why did she never tell us about you? You know, what's all this about?
Yeah.
That would have been really cool.
It would have been so exciting, because obviously they didn't meet her. You know, and like you said, the Doctor didn't tell them anything about her. So to have had that like pre-title sequence, she turns up, she saves them, they see the police box, they're running towards it, and they're like, what's going on? And she's like, I'm the Doctor. Cue titles. Bloody brilliant. That would have been so cool. But alas, not to be. I do hope she comes back next year. I hope there is a story or two where we get to see more of her. And obviously, I know people are already saying, please do a spin-off with her, you know, because it would be amazing. And, you know, they've got the TARDIS set, they've got the police box, you know, make it happen. But
see, I always said about Jodie's incarnation is that I'm concerned, no matter how long they leave it, when she finally regenerates, they've got a really difficult choice to make. Either they go for a bloke. By that token, they are then not admitting it, because they wouldn't admit it because it hasn't been a failure per se, but they would be arming the people that aren't happy with a female Doctor to go, look, now they've gone back to a bloke, it didn't work. Even if the viewing figures still fall and continue with the pace they're at now, they would still be seen to have failed with having a female Doctor. So what I would quite like, and I know I mentioned this to you before, is what if Jodie's Doctor rides off into the sunset. At the end of her run, we never see her regenerate, but we assume that she regenerates off screen, and we can meet that Doctor further down the line, or never meet that Doctor, or whatever. Just frees up the universe. If Chris Chibnall is so obsessed with freeing up this universe and making us feel like there are a million different Doctors wandering around at once, why not do something like that? Why not change up the formula like that? And then we just have the focus then shifts to Ruth's Doctor, and then Ruth is the new Doctor, but we never have her regenerated into.
Okay. Yeah. I
just think it would be an interesting way. Like the format, whatever we might say about how much we love the program, the format has not intrigued casual viewers for the last 10 years. So something like that would be an interesting way of reintroducing a new Doctor or having a new playing field, you know?
The other idea that I had, like just as you were saying that, which would be cool, is if it was revealed that Ruth had in fact always been not only a future incarnation, but the next incarnation. And the reason why she doesn't remember, you know, why her memories are all a bit hazy, and she's like, oh, I didn't remember turning into you, or all this business. You know, maybe it's time differentials, and, you know, it causes whatever, amnesia, I don't know. But we have a bit of a Watcher type situation. And Ruth has been there guiding her. And then when Jodie regenerates, Ruth and the two merge, a bit like the Watcher and Tom, and then out at the end we get Ruth, but Ruth doesn't. And then when we have Ruth's storyline, whoever's writing it can then weave in a way of why she has to go back and do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's just because she's been so well received by people that it just seems sort of daft to just let her go.
But that's the
She's so
same as
good.
saying, like Paul McGann coming back was so well received by people on the platform of the iPlayer. It makes sense. It makes so much sense to do a series with him,
Yes.
which wouldn't happen and won't happen.
Yeah.
And I fear that we're going to be in the same situation where the fans won't get what they want because it's not really about us anyway. But those are really cool. There's such interesting ideas that I think it would be a shame with her character particularly that they never get built upon. I think it would be a real shame.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now that we've got some of the story arc gubbins out
the big points,
the big points. Shall we go through story by story? Let's do our usual thing. So, Spyfall, parts 1 and 2. What did you think of our sort of Bondy? Well, part 1 was Bondy. Part 2 wasn't.
Part 1 was Bondy. Part 2 wasn't quite as Bondy, was it?
Yeah.
I was in deepest, darkest Wales when the first episode went out, so I watched it with a bunch of mates.
Yeah.
We were all very hungover, and we'd gone on a long walk. We were all muddy and tired, and it was just perfect. Sit down in front of the telly and watch Doctor Who. And the majority of people there, I have to say, were actually kind of interested in watching it.
Okay.
A few people were like, yes, let's watch it now. And a few people were like, yeah, I mean, whatever, if it's on in the background, we'll kind of come in or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was really nice having that communal viewing experience with people that aren't just family members or Doctor Who fans and stuff. And the general reaction to it was, including myself, this feels like a real blend of Stephen Moffat bombastic sort of blockbuster stuff and RTD headline catching, stunt casting and, crazy, you're going to do a James Bond story, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it was quite cohesive. It was my least favorite out of the two. I think it was the weaker part. Personally,
yeah.
And I think that the Bond conceit was interesting for a bit, and then it just kind of became a bit flabby, and it was almost like it would have been nice to have just done it for the first 2 or 3 scenes, and then just forget about it, or you either go all out for the entire 2-parter, and you have a James Bond, you have a gun barrel homage with the sonic screwdriver, or you have to go balls to the wall, or you have to just do it in the first couple of scenes and then ignore it. But the fact that it did kind of labour the first part was a bit of a shame, I think. Yeah,
and it did end up lending itself to some more sillier moments, like those bloody laser shoes.
I did find those.
You did find that? I was a bit but that's just me. Part 1, it was good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, after watching it, I certainly thought, gosh, what a jump from the last series. Like you were saying, it felt like a merge of different styles. I mean, it was just really quite. It was strong. It was a strong way to open the series. There was a good mystery there. I thought the aliens in it. I can't remember what their name was. The
Kasavin.
The Kasavin. That's it. I thought they were really interesting. They were really cool. I was a bit disappointed that there wasn't any sort of more built upon that in the second episode. They just sort of ended up being there. It felt like there was going to be some sort of a reveal, because they were sort of shrouded in mystery. But nothing obviously came of that.
Do you think that that is a? And again, I don't mean to offend anybody. That kind of the lack of intellectualism in his writing. It makes so much sense for the Kasavin to be the Cybermen. It makes so much sense for what's his face, Lenny Henry's character to become like a Tobias Vaughan figure.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense for them to be the Vords, even though it would make no sense whatsoever, but almost in a kind of, oh, what the hell, they're Macra kind of way.
Yeah.
Let's just make them the Vord. Why not?
Why not? Because that's the thing. I think when people sort of say, oh, you can't bring that alien back because no one will remember them. I was like, well, you can, because, it's for a general audience, it's just going to be like, oh, this is a new monster. They're not going to necessarily know that it's something from the 60s or whatever. Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially the point about Lenny Henry, just because knowing where the Cyberman story that we got eventually went, I felt kind of robbed that we didn't get a proper Cyberman story, if you know what I mean. Again, it ended up being another one of those bloody finales where it was all about the Master, and then the Cybermen ended up playing second fiddle. And it was like, oh, why do they just keep bringing out the Cybermen like, oh shit, we need a baddie. Here we go, Cybermen, they're in the cupboards. And, you know, I was really enjoying the development of the Cybermen in the Ascension of the Cybermen story. And, you know, the new models and all that sort of stuff. And then it was just like, oh, it's building.
And then we just go back to Stompy, Buzz, and yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, why don't they just think, yeah, they could have done something like, let's do the invasion for 2020, and what would that be like? You know, we've set up this character, like you said, you know, played by a really good actor, you know, one of Britain's national treasures. Then to have him come back in the finale, it was just like the threads were there, but they just didn't go anywhere. And I think it was the same problem with Series 11. There was cases of that where we thought, well, why in this story, why didn't that happen, and why didn't that lead into the finale? I don't know. I just don't understand. I don't understand why there aren't more. It just seems like there's not enough fingers on the button, almost, or not enough eyes on it.
That's like us going, you can't announce the story is Resolution, and then it turns out to be a Dalek in it, and you don't call it Resolution of the Daleks.
Yeah.
Like, now we've got Revolution of the Daleks.
Yeah.
Like,
that seems like
that sounds madness now, doesn't it? That they didn't call it Resolution of the Daleks.
It still absolutely baffles me that there's not even a Dalek on the front cover of the DVD. It's got 3 extras who are in the program for about 12 seconds all together. It is bananas. Yeah, no, madness. Right, Sacha Dhawan as the Master.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I think he is an absolutely fabulous Master.
Yep.
He is by far, if I was to rank them, I reckon Sacha is now sitting number 2 or number 3 out of all the Doctor Who villains.
Yeah.
All the Masters so far, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Who's on top?
Delgado, without a shadow of doubt.
Of course.
What do you think?
So, I've got a really difficult relationship with him, because at the end of part 1 of that story, when he first reveals himself and he's all mad and he's all like, I was just like, oh Christ, not another one of these Masters. I was really disappointed, and I think a lot of people were. Obviously, a lot of people loved it, but I saw a few people that were voicing the same concerns. Part 2, I absolutely loved him. I thought he was brilliant. The way that his anger and his rage seemed to be driving him, I thought that's a really interesting take on the character. We've not seen that before. There was a real venom, and like when he's strangling the Doctor, you know, it's like, gosh, we haven't had Doctor Who like this in a while. That sort of violence. And then when you get to the Cyberman story, it felt like that had gone, and he became more like, oh, I'm giggly daft, and like when the Cyberium enters him, he's like, oh, give me a drink first or something. And I was just like, oh, it was so good, and now you've fallen back into that trap of just being a mad loony. You know,
do you remember we were talking about villains before, and I said I felt like most villains these days on TV and film have been massively influenced by Heath Ledger as the Joker.
Yes, totally.
That they are tortured geniuses, they're tortured artists.
Yeah.
And their way of kind of expressing themselves is through violence or chaos or whatever.
Yeah.
For the first time, I saw a villain on TV in recent memory in a show like Doctor Who in the shape of Sacha Dhawan's Master, and I thought, he's not mental because he's not mental because he wants to be.
Yeah.
It's that it just feels natural to him.
Yeah.
And he's not doing it because he's doing it for an ulterior motive of, I'm just going to shake up the system and just do it. But, you know, I've got to be the outlier.
Yeah.
It's just that it just makes more sense to him to be a murderous, rampaging lunatic than it does to be. And they have that really cool conversation about, you know, between the Doctor and the Master. It's like, you know, you do your thing and I do mine.
Yeah.
And I think that was the perfect way to pitch this new incarnation of the Master. And I'm with you though that it was a shame he kind of reverted to ranting, raving silly quips
Yeah.
by the end of it all. But
it was like, whoa! It just felt like such a 180, and I was like, oh, what's happened here? Because I was really disappointed, because I was excited to have him come back. I was really looking forward, because it was pretty obvious that he was going to end up being in the finale. I think everyone sort of knew in their gut he was going to come back. And then when he came back and he was acting like that, I was a bit like, that's a shame. But who knows? Maybe when he comes back again, like he inevitably will, maybe he'll be like, well, I can find a better balance, or I don't know. I don't want to take anything away from him, because I did think in that part 2, I thought he was really, really good. I really liked him in Spyfall Part 2. I thought it was an interesting dynamic. Yeah, I thought it was just great. I mean, like him dressing up as a Nazi, that's brilliant. The Master as a Nazi, fantastic. It's just like
you got that
those...
Master of Disguise thing back again. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what the Master should be doing.
Totally.
He should be, hypnotizing people into believing that.
Yeah,
and
where's
that
the
thing,
hypnosis?
The hypnosis thing, yeah.
Bring that back. That would be
Great.
so good. I could imagine it with him as well, because he's got great eyes. You can imagine him like staring people out and bringing them under his influence and stuff.
And that's a shame as well. It's like, wasn't his him disguising himself as an Asian man? That wasn't hypnosis, was it? It was like a shield he'd put up.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, he should be brainwashing.
Yeah. That would have made much more sense.
That's another thing that's just like, it's the Master. He brainwashes people. Make him brainwash them.
Yeah, and it's something that hasn't been done for years in Doctor Who with the Master. So you've brought back the TCE. You might as well bring that back. TCE coming back, that was really good fun as well.
That was I'm not too mad on the design, but
it looks like a vape. There's a guy who's got a vape
with all those ring holders on it. Yeah,
and I was like, what the hell? That's not a TCE. I guess they were like, well, I mean, we can bring back the one that looks like a big black dildo, but
That's awesome.
But what about his costume? What do you think of that?
I liked the fact that it was an amalgamation, or a perceived amalgamation, of lots of different Doctors' costumes. I thought that you don't want to go too pantomime with him, because he is already an over-the-top character.
Yeah.
If you put him in a Delgado suit with the collar, and he was behaving the way that he was behaving, I think it would have been a really weird clash.
Yeah.
So I think he was dressed perfectly for his character.
Okay.
Personally, what did you think of his costume?
I don't know. At first, when I heard about, it's meant to be an amalgamation of the Doctors, I thought, well, that's weird. You're not the Doctor, you're the Master. And then, of course, now knowing within the story that he sees himself as, I only exist because of the Doctor, and like somewhere in his twisted brain, he's like, oh, I'm gonna dress like that bastard.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense. I mean, I'm not massively sold on it, but it's all right. It's okay.
I was looking at photos of him in that quarry the week before the last episode went out, and I was looking at them thinking, he looks like the Doctor. He looks like the Doctor. He stands like the Doctor.
Yeah.
And I was kind of pretending for like a few seconds when I was looking at it, like, oh, that's a really cool costume the Doctor's wearing there.
Yeah.
Because he looks like the Doctor. I think, but I didn't mind it. I really didn't mind it too much.
Interesting you should say that about the Doctor, because obviously the costume, he does look like the Doctor, and I thought in that sequence where he's talking to the cyber leader in later on, he's very doctory in his mannerisms and how he's talking, very Matt Smithy in that, and I thought he could be, if I was not a Doctor Who fan and I flicked on the telly and I was like, oh, this is Doctor Who, there's a Cyberman.
Definitely.
Oh, and that's the Doctor, is it, these days? Okay.
Yeah.
That is what I would have thought. I wouldn't have thought he was the Master. I'd have gone, no, it's the Doctor.
But that's quite nice. If they played with that a bit more, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Like that he is so much like the Doctor, except in his methods and except in his morals.
Yeah.
That they could do a thing where it's like, stop trying to be like me.
Yeah.
He realizes actually he does just want to be a good person.
Yeah.
And he's just been putting on this kind of facade because he's almost trying it out.
Yeah.
Like, what if I was a good person? But then also ultimately you can't have the Master being a good guy or a good girl. Like they just have to be unrelentingly evil.
Yeah.
And I think that he did do those moments of evil and madness quite well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, particularly when he appears in, in part two when they're back in time and he just kills those people randomly. We're just like, oh, that's brilliant, love it. He just couldn't care less, and
Yeah.
that's the sort of thing you want to see. So part two, much more of an improvement overall. Do you think? I've really
It was
enjoyed
just a
part two.
completely different story,
It
wasn't it?
was.
Really. I really liked it. I really liked the strange homages that Chris Chibnall feels like he has to make to other showrunners with the whole Last of the Time Lords running away from the press, running away from people taking photos of them.
Yeah.
And I really liked the fact that we just kind of stopped globe hopping for a second with the main core group.
Yeah.
And we had those moments where they're hiding out in that building site.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. I thought the Kasavin were way more effective in the second part than they were in the first, because their gimmick of being able to walk through walls is just sort of like, oh, cool.
Yeah,
but
fair enough. Yeah.
What do they do when they get you? Or they zap you somewhere. So it's kind of like the Weeping Angels, but they've got a way less interesting way of moving and getting around.
Yeah.
And I thought that just having them as, you could literally run into them at any moment because they can just appear out of nowhere when they're running around, I thought that was far more interesting. And I thought Lenny Henry really carried it as the central villain of the stuff based on Earth. And then obviously you've got Sacha Dhawan being fantastic. And I felt like the stuff in World War II was it was the weaker part of it for me personally.
Okay.
I like the idea that we had these historical figures involved.
Yeah.
Basically, the stuff involving the Doctor to me was the least interesting stuff. That was the least interesting part of that story.
Okay.
Just the way it was paced, I didn't really enjoy it too much.
See, I quite liked that. I liked the sort of the time hopping aspect of it. I did enjoy that. But I do think that the Second World War portion could have almost been an episode in and of itself, really.
That's what everybody expected.
And that's what everyone did, because that was one of the things that did get spoiled. I thoroughly enjoyed part two. Basically very much on the same page as you. I have nothing else to add.
Yeah.
You've said everything that I thought. So let's move on to the next story, which was...
The worst story in many, many years.
Orphan 55. Really, the worst story in many, many years. I think there are worse stories in this series than that one.
Do you really?
I totally do.
Okay,
I totally do. This is right. Here we go.
Let me just remind myself of the episodes we had this year. Okay, let me just go. Oh yeah, you're right. They have listed them back to front. That's really odd.
It's weird. Isn't it? Come on, Google.
So yeah, Orphan 55.
Yeah.
Let me go through this. Yeah, well, personally, I think with the exception of The Timeless Child, which I didn't really like that much, but it wasn't as bad as Orphan 55. I think Orphan 55 is certainly the worst of the series, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think it's pretty. I mean, I watched it 2 or 3 times, I think.
3, my God.
And I enjoyed it far more the second time round.
Same as me.
But it's still a 3 out of 10 for me.
Okay. I mean, it's definitely got a lot of problems, and it is definitely not very good. I'm not saying there's a good story.
End scene. Yeah. Next episode.
There was just too many characters. I mean, you've already got 3 companions, and then what? You've got that woman who looks like some budget furry.
I know.
What was going on there?
By the way, thank you to everybody in the chat who's just writing Benny. I really appreciate it.
In our house, after that episode, all I was doing was going around going, Benny, have you seen Benny? Where's Benny? Benny. Yeah, I mean, the woman, the furry lady. How was that allowed? I mean, it just looked like, right, is this actress, we're gonna stick some furry ears and a tail on her, we'll put some face paint on her. That was it looked like a child. It looked like Stu could have gone to the fair and sat her down and gone, could you paint this girl to look like a tiger, please? Yeah, here we go. It was bananas.
It was mad. But then in that same kind of like Russell way, where you've just got like a random character that turns up halfway through that looks like something fairly recognisable, And
Yeah, but
so
they
when
look
they
good.
die, you feel, I know, but I'm saying it's one of those things like, oh, I can, oh, this looks like a lion. I like lions. Oh no, the lion's dead.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like the character was, I like. Firstly, she's from the Midlands anyway, so she's got either a Wolverhampton or a Birmingham accent. So immediately she should get right in the bin. But I just think that that story was so set up to make you feel like every single person that was being attacked by the dregs was a loss.
Yeah.
And it made you kind of think, oh my god, wow, they're actually gonna kill people off in this story. It's a shame I don't care about any of them.
No.
And every single time somebody does die, I'm either thankful or I'm laughing.
I mean, I cheered when the old deer died. We were all like, thank God, right?
And they try and play it. They try and play it like Yaz is like, oh my god, this is going to really deeply affect Yaz because she's seen an old lady being torn to bits in front of her. But it's her. Who cares? It was horrendous. What I really struggle to find genuinely good things to say about that story.
Someone in the chat just said they wasted James Buckley this ep. I literally forgot he was in it. I forgot he was in it.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, like so we've got the three companions. We've got the girl who's trying to get after Ryan. We've got her mum. We've got this old deer.
Nowhere.
Yeah, that is so random.
She's my mum. Oh, great.
Yeah, it's like you do not need.
Nicer if that had been threaded in at some point through the discussion.
And it's like you don't need to keep adding. It just felt like they were just constantly adding stuff. Like, oh shit, we need to add something else. Oh, here's an EastEnders moment. That's her long lost mum. I was like,
oh, and by the way, this is Earth. Oh, and if that isn't bad enough, we've then got to tell you to recycle at the end of it. And I don't mind. I don't mind that. I like it when Doctor Who has a moral compass. And I think, generally speaking, the way that they've been doing it has been fine. It's not been to everybody's tastes. But that was the moment where I thought, well, I actually cannot defend that moment in the way that it does that morality tale thing, where it just, and it was so clearly tacked on at the end.
Yeah.
By somebody who maybe looked at the script, maybe has glasses, maybe both of his names start with C, and he looked at it and he went, it's a nice ending, even though the Doctor is leaving these two people to die. When go back and save them, but that's by the by. It's a good ending, but I think we need to tell people that they need to stop setting fire to the planet at the end of it. What do you think? It was awful. I can't say anything good about that story at all, personally.
The way that bit was shot as well, it was just like, I literally thought, Jodie's there like, oh yeah, I'm talking. I literally thought she was going to go, so remember everyone, don't forget to put your recycling bins out. It was so ridiculous. It felt like a He-Man moral. She might as well have just gone, in today's story, we learn what happens when you don't look after your planet. And like you said, I have absolutely no problem with Doctor Who having, a through line about wider issues. That's fine. It's been doing it for years. Green Death, the Mutants, all these really good stories. But that, at the end, just felt mad. Although I do think what they should have done is that should have been a Christopher Eccleston story. So at the end, Christopher Eccleston could have turned around and said, and I hope the planet shits on you.
Shits on you. What a legend. Love him. And I think that is the only entertainment we're going to get out of talking about Orphan 55. So we should probably move on to an episode that personally completely took me by surprise by how much I enjoyed it, which was Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror.
That was really good.
I tend to not enjoy, I don't know how to say it, stories like that. Yeah. But I don't know how to quite describe the kind of story it was. It was a historical kind of
celebrity historical.
A celebrity historical where they're just going to get chased around by, and I know about Nikola Tesla, and I know that the whole thing about Thomas Edison as well, but I don't know an awful lot about them. So it was interesting to me to see a historical figure that big talked about in this way, and it's kind of like, holy hell, they've never been mentioned in the show before to this level. So it just kind of made perfect sense. And so I kind of settled down thinking, I mean, it's going to be a fluffy sort of run around where the Doctor's going to every 5 seconds go, it's Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really like that at all. And it was just really refreshingly reverent to the person that they're talking about.
Yeah.
but it just kind of got on with it.
Yeah.
And they had a fantastic guest cast. Honestly, I think one of the best guest casts this show has had in years.
Yeah.
For an individual story, and the Queen, played by, what's her name from?
Oh, is it Mahindra something? Something like that.
Angie
Yeah.
Mahindra. Just fantastic and weirdly hilarious as well. With that whole somebody interrupted her or something,
Oh yeah,
and
and
she hit the line back.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just kind of like, I am fully on board with everything going on in this story. And I didn't think I would be. So I enjoyed that one, especially, I think, because I enjoyed that story.
Yeah, same, really. Really loved it. I know Jonathan really loved it as well. He thought it was great. Yeah, I mean, it was just a really great episode. Good monsters. My only complaint was that with the Queen, we didn't see more of her. Like, everything was shot up really close, and you didn't get to see all of the detail of the costume and like the tail and stuff. That might have been like a budgetary thing. Like, crap, we can't keep CGIing this big massive tail.
I wonder if perhaps that her lower half was supposed to be slightly more intricate in terms of CG.
Yeah.
And they just kind of kept it to waist up. Just to save time. Yeah.
I was sort of hoping she'd be a bit more like the Rachnos, that she'd have like 6 legs and stuff.
We assumed she was just the Rachnos.
Yeah, we did.
Like,
yeah. Or like a distant cousin because they were scorpions or something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I thought it was quite strange that never got mentioned. I thought, or even if it was just something like, you're the such and such race, you're still having a fight with the Rachnos or something, just anything like that. But the guy playing Tesla, his name escapes me.
I'll find it. Let's have a look.
Is it Goran something?
Goran Visnik.
Yes, excellent. I thought he was so good. He was just brilliant, and he could have been the Doctor. This series has been like, these people could have been Doctor Who. And when you saw him there in the TARDIS, in the gear, you thought, yeah, he could be Doctor Who, and he just had a great energy about him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Fab story. I really don't have anything to say about it besides the fact it completely took me by surprise and I really liked it.
Yeah.
Fugitive of the Jadoon. I think it's the story I have gone back to the most to rewatch.
Yeah.
And I have enjoyed it more every single time.
Okay.
And it becomes far less jarring on rewatches, the complete switch from the Jadoon story to, oh my god, suddenly we're going to reveal there's a new Doctor at the end of this tale. It just felt, when I first watched it, it did feel like a complete sort of like 180, like smack in the face, like, whoa, suddenly we're doing this now, okay.
Yeah.
And upon rewatching, it is a much more gentle push into that territory. And yeah, I really, really like it. It's up there as one of my favourites of the year.
Again, same. I think this is why when we get to the next couple of stories, I had such a hard time with those two, because at this point, other than Orphan 55, we had quite a good run of really strong stories. And the end of Spyfall Part 2, when Gallifrey was revealed, that was the first time in years where I was like, what is happening in this program? This is what? And then it happened again with Fugitive. I was like, oh my god. And my brother was like, oh my god, what is happening? And it was brilliant. And I really loved it. I loved all the Jadoon stuff. They're a fun monster. The prosthetics for the head were fantastic. It looked like a real creature. And then, like you said, when it did that flip turn to all the stuff with Ruth, again, great, loved it. What about Captain Jack, the return of Jack?
I was watching it with Stella, and we were sat on this sofa, and I saw the TARDIS, and I thought, oh, we're going to get that thing that I suspected was going to happen, which was from the trailer. We saw that room before, and I was like, oh, so maybe we are going to meet another Doctor in this story, because that was also the rumor, was that somehow this story would include the big revelation about past Doctors, and it was like, it's just a fluffy Jadoon episode set in
Gloucester,
in Gloucester. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And the voice spoke out. I remember sitting here and watching it, the voice kind of came out, and I was like, I recognise it, but I could not. It didn't twig who it was.
Yeah.
Like through the accent, and then the second line, and I was like, that's not. And then there he was, and I kind of turned to Stella, and I was like, oh, he's a character from the show from before that's not been in it for a while. And she was like, okay. And both of our reactions for the rest of the story were just kind of like,
yeah,
he's just kind of not doing a lot.
Yeah.
I kind of had to keep turning to her going, look, he is actually quite interesting, and he does do some nice things. Like he did have
his own series.
Yeah, he did have his own series. Like he was a big deal in the show before, but then to see what he was doing in the story was kind of like, are you sure? Are you sure about this? Like, it was nice to see him back, and I think this is not the last we see of him in Jodie's run, which would be very interesting. And I think that they'd be an interesting pairing.
Yeah.
But I mean, completely unnecessary with everything else going on, and I think that's one of the big criticisms people have been leveling at this series is too many ideas, too little time.
Yeah.
You know,
it felt very weird. Because I don't know if you remember, with all the social media trailers, that was one of the trailers that said, "Oh, you know, what you'll never believe what's going to happen this episode." You know, it was one of those.
And it was like, come on.
And then he turned up, and I thought, "Oh, that was it." And then the Ruth thing happened. I was like, "Holy shit, no, that was it." But
if you recall, Matthew.
Yes.
The night before that story.
Yes.
We were with somebody.
Yeah. Yes, we were,
and we said, does that trailer actually mean that? Is it actually going to be a big deal?
Yeah.
And they said yes.
Yeah.
And I completely did not remember that conversation when we were watching it live, because when it did happen, it felt so out of the blue.
Yeah.
But having said that, watching it back, knowing that it was going to happen, it is less jarring, and it is less what the hell's going on. So if anybody hasn't gone back and watched it yet, I would implore you all to go back and give it another go, because it does seem a lot less jarring upon rewatches.
Yeah. My one disappointment with it was that he didn't get to meet the Doctor.
And
I kind of thought he'd turn up in the finale. I was like, oh, the Cybermen are going to be back. He's already made this whole point about, you know, don't give him what he wants. Don't give the Cyberman what he wants. And he's like, oh, he's obviously going to come into the Cyberman story. He didn't turn up. And I was like, oh, okay. So what's happening? I don't know.
How did he know? How is he going to tie into all this stuff? How does he know about? Because we're talking about prehistory Gallifrey, right?
Yeah.
How does he know about the Alliance and these these humans? So hang on a minute. The portal.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask this. That is not a space-time portal, is it? That just takes you to a different part of the galaxy.
That is the idea, I think. Yeah. And then I guess the Master changed it to go to Gallifrey.
Okay. Just wondering. But yeah, him talking about the Alliance and all this stuff, and it's like, how does he actually fit into any of this?
Yeah.
You could have any character come back and tell the Doctor that.
Yeah.
It could have been Ruth.
Yeah.
You know, Ruth gets, something through the telepathic circuits and says, you need to be cautious of this. Now get out of my TARDIS.
Yeah.
And then you would have had more time with Ruth.
They could have gone a whole Terminator route and had someone like go back in time from that period, and I've come from the future to warn the past, sort of thing. I mean, it would have been trite and crap, but you could have done it. It would have served the story just as well as Captain Jack going, "Hi guys, you haven't seen me on TV for the last 10 years, but here I am." Yeah, I mean, I love Captain Jack. I think Captain Jack's great, and I was genuinely really pleased to see him. I was just disappointed that we didn't get to see more. But Fugitive of the Jadoon, great. We've obviously already talked about Ruth and how cool she was, and just that was a good one. That was a cracker.
And then Praxius, or needs more Sea Devils, as I'll call it.
Sea Devils.
I mean, an amazing visual for the virus, for the infection.
Yeah, that was really good.
Which, maybe we need to defer talking about Praxeus till after all this is done.
Yes.
But yeah, a bacterium that covers the human body in a crystalline substance. Oh my Christ, you scared the shit out of me, Stella. Sorry, you're right. I think it's because I'm talking about the virus, so don't worry about it. It's cool. A bacterium that covers human bodies in a crystalline substance before disintegrating them. The visual of the Praxeus infection looked awesome.
It was really good.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
What else happened in it?
See, now this is the first. This one was the first one that I didn't watch a second time. I tried to rewatch it, and then stuff was going on at work, and I thought I am far more interested in what's going on at work than I am in this Doctor Who story, which is bad. And yeah, it felt very disjointed. Like, I get they try and do this whole globe-trotting adventure to try and add a bit more scale to Doctor Who.
In one series, though, as well.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it just feels disjointed. Like, Doctor Who is at its best, I think, personally, when you've got X amount of people and you're isolated and it's, limited to a few places. I'm not saying every story should be a base under siege story, but you know what I mean? I think when you're then going, oh, well, these people are doing this over here, and then these people are doing this over here, I'm a bit like, yeah, okay, fine.
I think you could have that number of locations, but you also need to cut down on the guest cast.
Yeah.
Because, my God.
There was a lot of people in it, again.
In every story, there's a group of people that are vying for your attention.
Yeah.
And they've got a more interesting plight because they're directly involved in the story that you're following than the companions, which are just turning up for a cup of coffee and to see what's going on. It's like the imbalance between where our attention should be. I've got no interest in Ryan and Graham and Co. and Yaz, because I actually need to be paying attention to these characters because they're telling me the story points.
Yeah.
So either split the team up, which they did quite well in Praxis, to be fair. I thought they actually achieved that quite well, having Ryan with on his own and then Graham with Yaz. But again, you still end up with, at the end of the story, umpteen number of people inside the TARDIS. And again, a great guest cast. I thought that the Jake and Adam were fantastic.
Yeah.
I wasn't that mad on Gabriella.
No. She was a bit unlikable.
She was a bit unlikable. Suki as well, and the guy that they completely ignored being attacked by the Praxeus crows.
I was just about to say there was another guy, and then I kind of just remembered. Oh my God. Yeah.
Nah, he's kind of disappeared from the story, and nobody ever mentioned him again. I thought it was a good story, but again, we come back to this central problem: is that people don't have the same ideas that you and I do, Matt. Because when they went into that underground thing in the Indian Ocean, in the garbage patch, and they have all the netting, and it's just like, where are my fishy fishnet boys?
Yeah.
Where are they? The Sea Devils needed to be in this story, even if it was just for a quick, like, there's a body because they've all died in there because they're underneath the garbage patch. If it's there and it's got, one of those beer rings in its throat that they need to pull out,
or a rubber Johnny stuffed in its gills,
or a condom in its gills, they needed to be there because it's like, how could you not have the Sea Devils in this story?
Yeah.
Infecting the ocean with plastic, their homes, and they're fighting back with the plastic.
I mean, it's just. I mean, I get that there were a lot of returning things this series. There were a lot of returning things. The Master, the Cybermen, Captain Jack. So I guess maybe they thought. I'm sure they must have thought about the Sea Devils. The Sea Devils must have been mentioned somewhere in the planning of this story, and perhaps they just said, no, it's just going to be one too many things. But it just made so much more sense. I wasn't really interested in, what were they, like aliens?
I don't know what they were.
They were aliens or something?
They were aliens, but they were humanoid.
Yeah, they were scientists, weren't they?
Yeah, scientists.
They'd done something. So the Praxeus thing.
There were scientists that done something.
Praxeus was like a disease or whatever that they had made, but somehow
And then it
they
kind
were.
of got out of control or something.
And what were they doing? Were they like using it,
They were
feeding
trying
off
to find an
plastic?
antidote, weren't they? Yeah,
Well,
I can't remember.
it just felt so muddled and disjointed. And someone in the chat, Ben we know has put all the Nestines. Yeah, could have been a Nestine story. I literally have an idea for a Nestine story around that, so please don't do that, BBC. It just it baffled me. And I think the other issue that I had with it was, like you said, you didn't really care about the characters all that much, except for the two husbands, because there was a bit of an emotional thing there. But I just didn't feel the threat, if you know what I mean. This was meant to be this global thing, and they were like, oh my god, we've got to stop it. I wanted to see people like walking around shopping centres getting pecked to death by crows and stuff.
Or exploding, that would have been awesome,
Yeah,
definitely.
To show the scale. What was it, like maybe 2 or 3 people got crusty and blew up? Well, whoopee cack,
Oh my god.
Yeah, so it didn't do anything for me. And it was a shame because I really like Pete McTeague. All the stuff that he's done for classic Doctor Who stuff has been fab, and I liked Kablam. It was a bit of a shame, really.
And just to think, Praxeus released on the 2nd of February, 2020. It seems like 1,000 years ago that went out, and look at us now. Yeah. We're living through our own Praxeus epidemic.
Am I going to go crusty and explode?
I mean, if we stay on this stream for any longer, I would imagine so, yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, here we go.
I think, in my personal opinion, and take this with a pinch of salt, is up there with Rosa as one of my favourite Doctor Who stories of new series.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I just don't know where to begin. I don't know where to begin with you, Billy. I don't.
Right. Why don't we start with the beginning? Matthew.
Well, okay, yeah. All that stuff in Aleppo, wasn't it? With those
that wasn't very good.
That was not very good. And
I just think, we've always been going on about how Doctor Who should do stuff do different things.
Yeah.
Musical story. We should have a story that's in black and white. We should just have something that's so batshit crazy only Doctor Who could get away with it.
Yeah.
Something as batshit crazy as a dude whose fingers come off of his hand, bury themselves into people's ears, and steal their dreams and their nightmares that he's then using, that we think is to torture somebody, but in fact it's to satiate their bloodlust and their lust for evil and for destruction. And I just thought the bait and switch in it was really, really cool. I thought that the guest cast, I genuinely, I've forgotten his name.
Ian Gelder.
He's
superb.
Just the best villain that we've had for years. Zellin was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. I thought it was superb. I thought the allegory about mental health was actually really well handled. And I think the only thing personally that lets it down is the stuff in Aleppo, while an interesting setting, doesn't really do an awful lot.
Yeah, it's a bit pointless. You could get rid of that entirely, couldn't you?
Absolutely. And I also think that the final sequence, this has obviously been a source of much debate.
Yeah.
The final sequence in the TARDIS with Graham talking about the cancer. I know that people have different ways of viewing it. I personally think that the Doctor comes across quite badly still in that context. And, the stuff with Yaz has finally given that story that we've needed to kind of get to know her and get involved in her story and get involved in her life. It's too little too late, obviously.
Yeah.
But we finally had that story, and I think that it did her a world of good in terms of the development of her character. It's just a shame that that's never really going to be built upon because we're so late into her run, generally speaking, as far as we're aware. She's not going to be coming back. I think it's just a massive shame that we've left it so late that the effects of the story aren't really going to be felt.
Yeah.
But why didn't you like it, Matt?
Okay, so I I will agree with you about Ian Gelder. I thought he was excellent. I thought he was just a proper good Doctor Who baddie, just like everything you want from a Doctor Who villain. And I like the idea about the dream things. I did think like this bit when his fingers came off. Yeah, that looked great. I thought, oh, that's cool. When he soon became the Wet Willy Man and was fucking sticking his fingers in people's ears, that was my initial thought. That was all I could think of. It was like, are you
Okay.
really? And I was just like, oh, here it is, Wet Willy for you. Oh! That's all I could. That is all I could think of.
I didn't get that at all. I just thought it was weird and creepy. Like it does feel like something you would have in a nightmare as a kid.
Yeah.
That for some reason, I don't know why, this dude's fingers came off of his hand and flew towards me. It's just so batshit crazy and weird that it's exactly the kind of thing that you would dream about as a kid. And that whole thing where he's like, you know, the boogeymen do exist or whatever to that girl. I was just like, it was so creepy. And then I thought that would be a fantastic opening to a 2-part story. And then they've got them wandering around the streets of London, just taking over because they're Eternals. They can do whatever they want. And I'm disappointed that they didn't get carted off in a respectful way, considering they're supposed to be these all-powerful beings.
They were defeated so easily. I was like, what?
Yeah.
This is crap.
Yeah.
I still don't really understand how they were defeated as well. It's like, oh, she confronted her fears and used it against them. It was like,
finally confronted her fears, but even though that thing doesn't actually exist, but it does because they've got one on the ship, they turned it against them. So is it like a psychic attack, or were they actually mauled to death by that thing? I don't know.
Exactly. See, this is what I mean. It just doesn't stand up to scrutiny for my liking. I think
Fair enough.
Take away the Aleppo stuff. I think start the episode with the little girl in the bed, like, oh, no,
that's how I thought it was going to start. Yeah.
And then you've got the creepy man. I thought that would have been great. You know, Wet Willy Man aside, you know, that the Wet Willies aside, I can ignore that. He was excellent.
That's what you'll be on the Target cover, Doctor Who and the Wet Willy Man.
Oh, wow, brilliant. I'll write it.
Yeah, all right.
They are BBC books. Right.
You can only read it on Matt's OnlyFans, by the way.
Yeah. So this bold dude, right? He creeps into your house at night, and he sticks his fingers somewhere.
Oh my god.
The stuff with Ryan's friend. I couldn't give a shit about Ryan's friend.
We've seen him once before, though.
But I still couldn't care less. You've got Yaz, who has obviously had this, she suffered with depression, she was going to kill herself. That was really vague. That did not really come across the first time I watched it, because of the way they shot. Yeah, I didn't. I was like, what? She went out to the road. What? I thought she was gonna jump off a cliff or something, and then I just didn't really get it. And I just thought, you've got this character that people have been complaining that we don't see enough about them and their backstory. Yaz should have been the focal point. It should have been, rather than everyone's dreams, or okay, Graham's got his dream, that's fine. Ryan's was just really weird. He was like, oh, what? I've come back and the planet's on fire and those monsters from Orphan 55 are there. Bit random. It should have just been, right, well, let's see, kind of a bit like with Tegan and the Mara, Tegan has the dream about the Mara and everyone's trying to, they rally around her, don't they, in Snake Dance. I think it could have been more like that. It could have been like, well, what's going on, Yaz? Well, I've got something to tell you, Doctor. When I was 18, I was in a really bad place and I nearly killed myself. And and the Doctor would have gone, I'm a bit socially awkward about that, so,
Or, why didn't you?
Why didn't you? Why didn't you just do us all a favour?
Can I just read this bit here about Can You Hear Me?
Yeah.
So this is on the Wikipedia article. This is the really, really cut down sort of synopsis of what goes on, right? So, Zelen uses the Doctor's instincts to free the imprisoned girl, revealed to be another immortal god named Rakaya, right?
Yeah.
So imagine that's like 15 minutes towards the end of the story that gets revealed.
Yeah.
Eventually, the Doctor saves her companions and returns to Earth, and Yaz repays an old debt she made to a police officer she met 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And I guess if you didn't like it as much as I did, that's all you can say about the story. But I really, really liked it, and I will defend that to the grave.
And I rewatched it the other day because I knew you loved it so much, and I'd only watched it once at that point, and I thought I'm going to sit down and watch it properly. And it was 45 minutes in, the story ends, and then the rest of it is just, right, let's see Ryan's friend go into, whatever.
Go to his group therapy,
Go to therapy, and Yaz doing her stuff. And I was just like, I don't care! Where's the story? I don't give a shit about Ryan's friend! I don't care that he's locked in his house, fucking not doing the washing up.
All right, okay. We're there. We got there. So what the problem we have with this, and we've come to the center of it, is that Matt doesn't believe that mental health issues are a real thing, and that's fine. So now we're on to the next. That was a joke, by the way. On to the next story: the haunting of Villa Diodati.
The best episode of the series.
I didn't like it as much as everybody else did upon first watching it. But eventually I came around and thought, yeah, that it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic.
What was it that didn't grab you to begin with?
I think it was because it was for the same reason that I expected to not like the Nikola Tesla story, right. the celebrity historical thing. That I thought that if you have got the Cybermen in this story, I just thought that isn't the place I would like to see them. In that context of a historical celebrity story. And so I kind of went into it very skeptically thinking, Cybermen are my favourite villains. They're going to really misuse them in this. And ultimately they didn't. But I was waiting all the way through for the moment where I would go, see, I told you they fucked the Cybermen up again.
Yeah.
And thankfully it didn't come.
No.
But that was a really nice thing to acknowledge upon the rewatch, is that it wasn't as bad as all that.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed watching it again.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I loved it because at that point, I didn't think the Cybermen were going to be in it. I know we had the rumours, but I thought it was one of those mixed message type things where they're like, oh, the Cybermen are in the finale, and this is the story just before it. And so, and so there's some crossed wires going on here. So when the Cyberman, I mean, I was enjoying the story anyway. I just thought the guest cast were really strong. I just enjoyed the mystery of it. Obviously I love that Hinchcliffe Holmes gothic horror thing anyway. That's like my favourite era of Doctor Who. So anything in a haunted house, I'm always like, oh yeah, I love this. And I thought the whole Byron and the Doctor's relationship, that was really good. He was trying to get after her and stuff. That was really fun. Hadn't been done before. With Jodie. And then all of a sudden this Cyberman turns up. I'm like, whoa, was not expecting this. This whole story has suddenly gone from interesting mystery to, whoa, it's just up the ante.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's a Cyberman that is probably the most interesting thing done with the Cybermen in years. That we've got this guy who is half converted, but he's almost like a religious zealot. He stands for everything the Cybermen are about, and I killed my children because they joined the resistance and all this stuff. And it's like, my God, this is some really dark, strong stuff. And I just loved the design. 10th Planet arm and Nightmare in Silver chest, and I just thought it was great. I just thought it was really, really good fun.
When the zealot stood up to his height and he walked towards the door, I went, holy shit, he's not stomping.
Yeah.
And the way he moved.
Yeah.
In that sequence where the baby's crying, when he was walking around, I thought that is how a Cyberman moves.
Yeah.
Every step is purposeful.
Yeah.
And strong, and I just thought it was fantastic. Also, I guess replying to a comment somebody hopes that we see, Mr. Play the Funhouse Trickster, repeating a comment I said earlier in the hopes Matt or Billy sees it. The story is a rip-off of the Silver Turk. Not really.
No, not really at all.
It's a completely different story.
Yeah.
There's no similarity to it besides the fact that Mary Shelley's in it and a Cyberman's in it, which is a
Yeah.
weird coincidence for the story they wanted to tell.
Yeah.
But there's completely different stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and
There we go.
even the Mary story where the Doctor meets Mary, Paul McGann meets Mary, I should say. You know, even that is very different. Obviously, there's no Cybermen in that, and that's it's obviously set on the same night, but it's very different.
Yeah.
And obviously, does that destroy that story now that it's in the new series? Nah, not at all. You know, time war, things happen twice. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
who cares?
I want to talk about something really quickly as we go into the Ascension of the Cybermen.
Yes.
Now, I know that people did not like this sequence at all.
Yeah.
It was something that would have really annoyed me 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I loved the flying cyberheads at the start of Ascension of the Cybermen. And I know that everybody was laughing. And I know that everybody was saying, this is really silly. Oh my God, it's so silly. But I thought the way that they paced it, if they had played Murray Gold music over the top of it,
Yeah.
it would have killed that sequence.
Yeah.
And I think that the way that they played it in complete silence with some really cool drone footage.
Yeah.
And all you can hear is from the point of view of the Cyberman is the whirring and then people screaming to run. I thought that is how you get it over effectively, like in a villainous way, is that these things are going to decimate you. They're really, really, really deadly. I thought they just treated it really, really well, personally. And I know that people laughed at the flying heads, but I thought they were really cool, personally.
I mean, I thought they looked dumb.
Yeah, after all that.
Yeah, I know you've come in with this really thought out critique about how good they were. I just thought it looked bloody silly.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I just didn't know why they couldn't have used like a new thing, like a cyber drone, or that wasn't a head, or cyber mats. You know, remember the cyber mats in More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS with the stingy.
The little stingy tail.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you could have seen them flying around, isn't it?
I feel like because they are sort of towards the end of their. I mean, like the Cybermen and the humans have decimated each other.
Yeah.
So you've only got these very small pockets left that, you know, they're not going to be able to build new equipment.
True.
So it kind of makes sense that they would use that, and the fact that they go to such great detail as well to explain this is a glitter disperser or whatever, or this is going to jam their signaling, or this is just a force shield, and then they just bang, decimate it. It's like that is the way the Cybermen should be dealing with this stuff.
I totally agree. I do like the idea that there's like a cyber pitch meeting, and they're like, right lads, we haven't got any kit anymore to build new things. What can we use? Oh, there's some cybersmen kicking around in the cupboard over there.
Just put boosters in their heads and lasers in their eyes, and we're good. We're good.
Done. Get on it, Cyber Bob. Cheers.
What did you think of the introduction? Somebody just put it in the chat about the blend from the Cybermen's eye into the title sequence. I thought that was really neat.
That was really cool. That was so cool. Yeah, I loved that. I thought that was really great. I was sad we didn't get My Revenge Cybermen in that story, because they are the Cybermen of the Cyber Wars. I wanted to see.
Of course they are.
I wanted to just see, like, even in the CGI models of them floating in space. It wouldn't have been nice to have just seen like a head or something. We had Cybersmen and whatever. Oh, it would have been so cool. But
it would have been neat. Can we now please, finally, for the love of everything that's holy, put the fucking Cybersmen to bed now?
Yeah.
I am so bored of their look. They can do everything they want to now with them. They could chrome them up. They could make them look less plasticky.
Yeah.
But they are. I think that they are in this. I don't. Just the Daleks are a timeless design.
Yeah.
The new series ones, they look fantastic. The Cybersmen are now really starting to look dodgy.
I was amazed when I saw the publicity images and they were in it. I was like, Christ, are they still standing? They must have had to remake some bits, because they must be so old and tatty now. What's that, 2006 that they were first used? God almighty, it's mad. Yeah, I was surprised to see them in it. I mean, it worked. It was fine. But yeah, I think you're right. Put them to bed.
Bless him.
Yeah. It just seems so weird as well when you consider like what happened to the Nightmare in Silver design. Like where have they gone? What
I'd rather have these Cyber Warriors than them. I think they're a fantastic design. I'm not mad on the spikes,
snap? Yeah.
um, but apart from that, I think they look great. I'm still annoyed they're stomping around.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they've got the weapons, the one on the head and they've got the one on the arm.
Yeah, the lights are really cool.
I think that's really cool. They look far less like Iron Man because I think they look more streamlined.
Yeah.
And I really like their design. I think they look fantastic. And now I just want them to be, just want them. I want one to have black handlebars, the rest to be completely identical.
Yeah.
I want the hands on hips, and I want some cyber gossip, and I want some excellent, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
I think they should have got David Banks to be a Shard or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
He would. Oh, that would have been amazing. And I don't know if he would have squeezed into that costume anymore, but
Yeah.
we can't. We could but wish.
You can.
And then
the one thing I will say about those Cybermen though, before we move on, love the heads and stuff, and like you said, wasn't keen on the spikes. The guns in the hands, right? Obviously, that's now a staple of new Cybermen. I love how they were like, oh, these are the best Cybermen that have ever been built. They're brilliant. They're stomping around. They can't shoot for shit.
Yeah.
They are the worst shots. It's like, really? It's like, come on, they're like going around and they're like missing everything. It's like, come on, guys, sort it out.
I know, but they're villains in a science fiction series. They can't shoot. That's just the way that it works. They're not allowed to.
They're not allowed to shoot straight. Yeah.
What did we think of our human co-host as well? Because I'm sensitive. We're getting towards the end, and it'd be quite nice to ask people some questions.
Yeah.
What did you think of our co-stars in it? Through it, the humans that survived.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was that old thing of there were so many different people in it that you were sort of there. They were there to die, that you just sort of forgot about them. But the chap from Game of Thrones, the old guy with the white beard.
Yeah, Koshamas.
We were all saying, "Oh my God, he's going to end up." This feels like it felt like a rehash of Utopia, that story, because it was like, oh, we're the last surviving humans, but there's this one place that we can get to, and if we can get to there, we're saved. And then you've got this old geezer who's kind of doctory in his own way. He's got a nice sense of humor, but he's obviously been and done and seen some stuff. And it was like, oh, come on, there's going to be a reveal. He's another doctor, he's another master, or something. And then that didn't come. It just turned out that he was like, I'm from the Resistance, and I sent the Siberian back in time. In like the last 2 seconds before he died, it was like,
but that's the most bizarre thing, is that in the first story, he's like this old hermit. And then in the next episode, he's a fucking kung fu monk.
Yeah, he's like Rambo.
It was really odd. Really odd. But I thought the guest cast were really good.
They were really good. Really good. Yeah.
And then we had the Timeless Children. The only thing I really wanted to bring up about the Timeless Children, really, that we haven't already spoken about, is the way a Shad was dealt with.
Yeah.
Just blasted, and that was it. And I thought that was another thing that I had a really negative reaction to when I watched it live. Was here we are again, the same sort of Stephen Moffat trick, where we end up having a great villain that's dispatched with like that.
Yeah.
And it's like all the good that you've done has been completely undone, and that villain is never coming back.
Yeah.
And you could have had that person out there as a genuinely convincing villain.
Yeah.
It was almost like they were trying to do the Series 1 villain. What was his name? Tim Shaw. Yeah. It was like they were trying to do him, but better.
But good, yeah.
And they did do it, and then they killed him off.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, it sells the Master as being, very, very deadly, that he was able to just kill a Shard like that. But at the same time, you did just kill a Shard like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I wasn't particularly keen on it.
It goes back to that thing that I said about how he seemed like the best thing that had happened to the Cybermen in a long time. And then you just get rid of it. And I was not particularly keen on the idea of our big plan is we're Cybermen, but we're going to get rid of the men part and just become completely mechanical. And I was sort of
Yeah.
like, really? That's the big thing? That's the big takeaway from all this? Because I
Bugger.
thought it was going to be, we're going to keep the rage that fueled Ashard, or whatever his name is, the rage that fueled him is what seemed to make him stand out for the rest. And I thought he was going to be like, yeah, emotions are shit. Apart from this one's great, and I'm going to inject it into all these Cybermen, and we're going to be fueled by the same hatred that I have for humanity.
Which is what I assume he was doing to that one random Cyberman when he cut it open.
Yeah, it's so weird, really weird. Yeah, that wasn't clear when they were doing that they were getting rid of the human parts of them. It's a bit strange.
Because they didn't speak. What were they doing anyway? How different were they on screen?
Yeah.
Compared to every other Cyberman we've ever seen.
Yeah. It was just odd. It was one of those things where it felt like there's a building up to there's going to be a reveal, and then it was like, no, there's no reveal. It just is, and it's like, oh, okay. Yes, so disappointing because I thought Ascension was really good. It was a really good setup, and it was nice to see the Cybermen doing Cybermen-y stuff. But then, it just didn't really go anywhere. It all just fell out all the wayside for the Time Lord stuff, and that's my disappointment. Is that we didn't again we miss out on a proper Cyberman story. And I said to you because what was it the other day? The trailer for the new Big Finish Cyberman Return of the Cybermen story. And that sequence where we see the guy hiding in the cupboard and the Cyberman is just walking along silently and then turns and pulls him out. We're like, that is far scarier than any of that stomping and stuff. And I just wish we'd get something like that, like a base under siege Cyberman story. That's all I want.
Yeah. Well, one day I think somebody's going to come along and actually treat the Cybermen with the respect they deserve.
Yeah.
But we might have to wait a little bit longer for that to happen. So I would just suggest to say, if anybody wants to ask us any questions, because we're going to be wrapping up in about 15 minutes, then go ahead and ask in the chat. On the whole, Matt, in a sentence or two, what was your Series 12 review?
A big improvement, but it fizzled out towards the end. Generally speaking.
A big improvement. Okay. I would say a continued run of form with a few issues here and there.
Yeah.
Which can be rectified by a better writer. I don't know. I think what they were doing, the creative team they have there is great, but I just think that they're putting too many eggs in one basket. You know, I think and it just needs somebody else there to take the foot off the accelerator.
Yeah, it just needs another set of eyes. You want someone else.
Well, that's hopefully Maxine Alderton. You know, she wrote your favorite story of the year. So
yeah, she was so good. I really hope she comes back.
She is. The rumor is that she's basically a co-showrunner on Series 13.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She is the. So from what I understand, I believe she is another head writer.
Oh, interesting.
I think.
Well, if that's the case, then, as the first Doctor says, my future's in good hands.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
What did we think of the Brendan subplot in Ireland? That was Ben Jackson that asked that.
Oh, good name. Oh, yeah. Like, when it happened, I was like, what is all this? And then nothing was revealed from it in the episode, and I was like, oh, what was that all about? And
I'm so thick that I thought the Doctor's actually going to end up being from Ireland and is going to be like half human. Yeah, literally. And I was like, oh, thank God it was like a perception filter thing. But I mean, an interesting thing to throw us off the scent with. But again, it's like too much stuff's going on here.
Yeah, weird. And like, and I didn't get the fact that the Doctor was actually seeing those memories, because like in the second part, she was like, "Oh yeah, I keep having these memories," and he's like, "Yeah, I've been beaming them to you," or something. And it's like, "Oh really?" I just thought it was just some weird cutaways that we were getting. I didn't realise that she was there going, "Oh, why am I seeing this ginger boy as a policeman?" What, it's just very weird, very odd.
Very strange. What do you expect from this year's special? Lots of questions people asking about Revolution of the Daleks. I just hope they keep the Daleks as interesting as they made them in Resolution.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be fine. Daleks and more Daleks. That's all right for me. I think usually.
Yeah. That's
What else have we got here? Who would you like to see as the next showrunner? Well, we just spoke about Maxine Alderson. I think Vinay Patel's been fantastic. Deep McTeague has been fantastic as well. I feel like we've got more options in terms of consistently strong stories written by certain individuals that we can actually sort of go, they'd be great. They'd be great. We can actually sort of pick them, and they have their own voice as well, which I think is really nice.
Yeah.
What else have we got? We've got that new Moffat Doctor Who scene written to reintroduce Day of the Doctor.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
That's coming out. And also, I've just seen Emily Cook tweeting about the fact they've got the BBC continuity announcer to do a new continuity announcement for today's screening.
Very nice. Oh, I like
which
that.
is very, very sweet.
Yeah,
very nice
very
idea.
good.
Thoughts on Bradley and Tosin leaving the show after the special?
I'm sad that Bradley's going because he was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like Bradley in the series. Ryan, yeah, I mean,
it's about time, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, take it or leave it, really. I mean, he could stay longer, or he could go. It doesn't really make an awful lot of difference to me.
Fair enough. I really like. I like both of them. I would have preferred a season of Graham on his own with 13 over what we appear to be getting, which is going to be Yaz and 13. But at the same time, it gives us a chance to do some cool stuff with Yaz and see Yaz do some interesting things, I hope. Yeah. Core writer, that's what she's been addressed as. Thank you, Ben Wino.
Okay.
Core writer. Okay, what else have we got? What are your opinions on the current gap between series? It's going to be, again, drastically affected by the coronavirus. Yeah. So it's going to be a longer wait than you were expecting anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is a bit of a pain in the bum, but never mind.
Yeah.
I know in the past video you both said you didn't like a companion and Doctor romance in the show, but with a romance developing between 13 and Yaz, do you think that would add anything to the show? I don't see that developing, to be honest. I don't see what people are seeing in that. I just wonder how much of it is people just wishing that was being shipped and are just injecting it, projecting it onto it themselves. But
the relationship seems entirely platonic to me. I can't see. It's not like with David and Billy Piper, it's not like the Rose 10 or even 9 and 10. 9 and 10, 9 and Rose.
There's a lot of fan fiction out there about that.
Yeah.
Or Rub Me Bald Head. What would you say is your favourite costume Jodie's worn so far?
I liked her tuxedo.
I like the tux as well.
It was good.
It looked ace. I do like the jumper that she wears underneath as well.
Yes, yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
And I like the waistcoat that she wore in Haunting of Villa Dooby-Dooba.
I thought that costume seemed a little bit too... It was a bit messy.
Okay.
I mean, I like the fact that she just thought, I can wear my normal jacket on top, but I'll just chuck something a little bit fancy underneath. I thought that was a cool idea, but I guess I didn't think it looked particularly great, personally. Who would you rather see back out of these two legends, Pigbin Josh or Khalid?
Oh my god.
You could sort of slot Pigbin Josh in anywhere, really.
You could, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Imagine that. It wasn't Captain Jack. Pigbin Josh turns up. Ooh-ar!
That would have been amazing.
What are you trying to tell us, old tramp?
Nano Barts are. That'd have been great.
No, he doesn't say anything else. He just says "ooh-ah."
Just says "ooh-ah."
Yeah.
All right.
And they're like, "What? What do you mean, old man?"
That's like Lassie.
Yeah.
What do you say, boy? Trouble down the well. Ooh-ar. Great. Okay. Cybermasters. What did we think of the Cybermasters? We didn't talk about them.
We didn't, because I thought they looked bloody dopey.
I quite like them. I mean, they're ridiculous, but I think they look cool. But
when they came stomping out, and they had I was like, oh my god, what is happening?
I actually don't think we need an opinion. I think the fact that you just pissed yourself laughing thinking about them is pretty indicative.
It was like, oh shit, we've got these new Cybermen suits, but we need another type of Cyberman. Right, we'll do some new heads, and there's a bit of black fabric in the cupboard. Just drape that over them, and just.
I mean,
Why did they have like sad faces?
Shades.
Pardon?
You take them or the Cyber Shades?
Probably the Cyber Shades.
No way.
Yeah, I probably would.
Nah, I don't believe you. Have you seen the Faceless Ones animation? What did you think of it?
I've not watched it because I'm getting it for my birthday, which is at the end of the month, so I've got to wait. My brother, Jonathan's just texted me, and he has just said about the Faceless Ones, so I'll read it. He said, really enjoyed the Faceless Ones. A very good story. Didn't realise that was Ben and Polly's finale. There we go.
Now you've just spoilt it for all of our viewers as well. Well done.
Shit. Sorry.
No, it doesn't matter. Everybody knows. It was broadcast in the mid-60s. Don't know by this point. That's your fault. I accidentally bought 2 copies of the Faceless Ones.
Oh, yeah.
And so as a result, I think I'll probably do something over on Twitter. If anybody fancies a copy, I will send it to them, given that we haven't got an awful lot to do at the moment. So if you don't have the Faceless Ones, I will do something on Twitter, I think, and give it away. What else we have?
I also want to just add this, because Jonathan wanted me to mention this. So he was talking about the whole timeless children thing. And he said, now this is obviously coming from someone who is very militant in his views on Doctor Who. And he turned around and said to all the people who are saying, it's to ruin the programme and blah, 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 blah. He is saying, it certainly hasn't ruined the programme like some of them think. At the end of the day, if you don't like it, just ignore it. I certainly will. And you can tell them that with my thoughts when you do the video with Billy. So there you are.
I thought he was going to say, if they don't like it, they can fuck off. That would have been amazing. Beautiful. Yeah. Well, everybody just follow Jonathan's advice.
Yeah, just ignore it. Some bugger's going to come around and change it anyway.
Yeah. Exactly. No showrunner is gonna take on board exactly what Chris Chibnall has done and go, right, let's do a whole season based on that.
Yeah.
It's going to get ignored in the same way that Stephen Moffat practically ignored and undid all of the Time War stuff.
Yeah.
Just live with it.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. That was one thing I didn't like about the whole Gallifrey being destroyed thing. Again, not only was it, again, but I didn't really feel like Jodie's Doctor was necessarily that affected by it. Do you know what I mean? Like when you see Eccleston, and like all he had to be told was, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear about you and your people," and he's like welling up with tears. And she just comes along and like, "Oh, you know what? Well, let's just go and meet Nikola Tesla. That'd be good fun, wouldn't it?" I didn't feel like there was any anguish, and with her fam and all this business, they could have been there to help her through it, and there was just so many things that. There's just so many ways it could have gone that would have probably been better, but hey ho.
But this is the situation we're in, and it'll get ignored. So it'll get ignored.
Yeah, think about it. In 20 years' time, are people going to be going on about the timeless children? Nah, it would just be one of those things that happened in a story or a couple of series, and then it was forgotten about.
Absolutely. I think we'll take these as our last 2 questions before we sign off. They're both kind of the same. Number one, how do you think Chris and Jodie, how long do you think they'll stay on for, and how would you make 13 regenerate? I reckon that they're going to be here for maybe another 2 years. I would hope that they want to see out a story arc if they've got something set out. So maybe another year or 2 they'll be with us.
I would say the same, a year or 2.
Yeah,
I think 2 is being generous. At least for Jodie. I think Jodie might go sooner.
Fair enough. I think she has been she's been very publicly, more than most other doctors, has publicly said, I do not want to let this part go when I really enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. And I would hope that the BBC are cool with that as well, and they let her stay for a bit.
Yeah.
What was the other thing as well? Oh yeah, how would you make 13 regenerate? It's really tough. Do you think it's different? It's different trying to pitch that, because we are dealing with an actress in the role, that you don't want to make it too. I don't know what the word is. You don't want to make it too violent or too like visceral the way that a character dies, especially if they're a hero like the Doctor.
I don't know. I don't know what hasn't been done by this point.
That is a great video we should do. How has the Doctor not died?
Yeah, I mean, radiation poisoning has been done to death.
Yeah,
Pertwee,
literally.
Tennant, even Nick Briggs did it for Last Adventure with Colin. He gets radiation poisoning or something, and it's like, really? I'd have sooner him just bash his head on off the exercise bike, Yeah, I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? Doing something heroic, obviously.
Like maybe shot again, or like, they make, I don't know. It's really hard. How do you kill off the Doctor in a way that hasn't been done before? Flung out of the TARDIS again. That's the thing I was going to say, is you could do another falling from a great height like the Fourth Doctor.
Yeah.
But Jodie fell from her TARDIS straight through an intercity train roof, and was all right. Now I know that we can take that and go, oh, it's because she was
just regenerated.
And then with Tennant, I guess that doesn't make any sense, because he wasn't.
He wasn't. Yeah. He should have hit the ground and got up as Matt Smith.
We said that with bang.
Oh, hello.
like the sneeze regeneration that Matt Smith had into Capaldi. Absorbing Graham's cancer. All right. I think that's got to be the last word.
He wins. Whoever wrote that wins the internet for today.
Dominic Carter, well done.
Oh, well done, mate.
That was beautiful.
That was so funny.
I think, with all the things that are going on at the moment, we can't nothing is off limits. And I think that has given me such a laugh, mate. Thank you very much. And I think we all needed we all needed a laugh. So holy hell. Maybe the 13th Doctor can go on YouTube and look at some of the videos online, and that'll make her regenerate. It's what some of the videos, like the ones that you've made.
Yeah.
We should maybe round off with this comment as well. This was on your video.
It's like mean tweets, but mean comments.
Exactly. There's nothing I like better than listening to someone who was born decades after I started watching a show, and who clearly knows sod all about the context of the time and society in which it was produced, telling me why my opinion is wrong.
Yeah.
One day, when the world you currently inhabit and feel so uncomfortable in has been pulled out from under your feet, you might just understand how we feel if you're smart enough. Just be aware, time moves on so much more faster than you can ever imagine at your age, and before you'll know it, you'll wake up in a world neither you don't know nor understand, and you won't like it any more than we do. Trust me, it's coming for you.
Oh, whoops, you've disappeared. Hang on, that's my fault. I've oh no. Oh, what have I done? Hold on.
What have you done?
Oh no, what have I done? Oh, are you there? Hello?
Still here? Yeah, I'm here.
I can't see your face.
That was whoever wrote that comment has just doomed us.
Hello?
I'm still here, mate. I'm still here.
I can't see you. I just see your avatar. I've just realised that when I brought the chat up to send you a link, that has been up in the side of the screen.
I noticed that.
You should have said. Move that out of the way. But now I can't see you at all.
Right.
You've disappeared.
Hey, look, I think that's the perfect time to end it, to be honest.
What a shame. I was looking forward to more mean comments, but you've disappeared. So yeah, we'll have to leave it there.
That's all right. Well, thank you everybody for coming along and
yes, thank you,
and listening to us today. That was fabulous, and I hope that we get to do this again at some point soon.
Yeah.
Because it's been great fun. So maybe send us some topics. Tell us the kind of thing you'd like to see, and we'll do some more of it. There are some new things coming up.
Mm-hmm.
There's some new videos that we recorded at the start of the year, which I've not been able to get around to editing yet.
Yeah.
So they are on the way.
Yeah, you can do it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've got plenty of time for all that stuff. Yeah. So anything else you want to add, Matt? Or
sorry, I broke the stream. It was that one comment. It just crashed everything. I'm sorry.
It did. Messed everything up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming along. And
I made a prayer sign then, like a thank you, and I realised that that's completely fucking pointless.
No one can see you. All they can see is the drawing of you stroking your beard. So I will say goodbye. Bye bye. Thank you for coming. See you again
buddy.
soon. Bye bye.